Hello YouTube, and welcome to National Home Can It Forward Day. I'm going to start off with this easy jalapeno jelly, and this recipe comes from the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving, so you can find that recipe there. Let's get started. I have 12 ounces of jalapeno peppers that I have stemmed, seeded, and deveined in my food processor, and I'm going to chop that up. The reason this is considered an easy jelly is because we're actually going to leave the jalapeno pepper. We're going to chop that very fine. We're going to chop this fine, and we're actually going to leave the jalapeno pepper in the jelly instead of making a juice and adding the juice to the jelly. So let's get going. As soon as I get this finished, I'll be right back. Alright, I've got my jalapeno peppers pureed, and my food processor's a heavy duty one, so I've got some foam here. But I added half of my vinegar to my peppers, and I pureed those. Okay. Now I'm going to add the rest of the vinegar, and I'm using cider vinegar. This is such a simple and easy recipe. It's peppers, vinegar, sugar, and liquid pectin. How simple can that be? And now I'm going to add my sugar. And I have this in a deep-sided pot because this sugar will get really hot. And as it starts to bubble, as you know, things with a high sugar content tend to splatter a little bit. So I've got a deep-sided pan here. Now, I can also add some green food coloring to this if I want to make the color of this jelly a little darker green, but I really don't want any artificial ingredients in here. I don't really want to add that food coloring, so I'm going to have a pale green jelly when I'm done here. So let's move this to the stove and we'll begin to cook this. Okay, I've got my jelly up to a boil, and I'm going to boil this and stir constantly for 10 minutes. You can see this, with all the sugar, this is rising up on the sides of the pan. That's the reason you want a deep-sided pan. There's going to be a lot of foam there. You can see in the back here I've got my lids and rings, and I've got those on to just barely a simmer. Just some, the water's hot, it's not boiling, but there are a few small bubbles coming up. And then over here I have sanitized my jars. Those have been boiling for 10 minutes. So I'm ready to go as soon as the jelly is ready. Okay, I wanted to talk about the pectin for a minute. I'm going to use a liquid pectin, and this is a product by Sure Gel. This is not clear gel, but Sure Gel. It's called Certo Premium Liquid Fruit Pectin. There's 2 pouches in this box, and I need 2 pouches to go into this. It used to come in a bottle. I haven't seen it in a bottle in a long time, but you can get it in pouches. The pouch looks like this, and you just cut the top off that pouch and dump that in at the appropriate time, which is about 27 seconds from now. So I'll cut the top off of this one. And I'm going to put this in and then stir vigorously for 1 minute, and then I'll be ready to place this into my jars. Stir that good. You don't want anything, you don't want any lumps. And then I do have a little foam on here, so I'm going to wind up skimming my foam off before I actually place it into my jars. And the liquid pectin in this, you know, you could have some clumping with the powdered pectin, and I think that's one of the reasons it calls for the liquid pectin. It's just a little bit easier to use. Okay. Now we're going to let this go for 1 minute. I need to turn this back up. It just about boiled over on me. And I've gotten my ladle that I'm going to use. I've gotten that out. I'm sterilizing that. And over here in my canner, I have my funnel. So I like to make sure everything that I'm using is sterile. I have very few failures and spoilage by being, you know, making sure everything's very clean and sanitized. And that way I know it's safe and I don't have to worry about it. Alright, I'm just beginning to skim the foam. So it's okay to have that foam, but if you wanted to enter your product into a county or state fair, you wouldn't want that. And you will get a prettier product without the foam. So I'll get the rest of this skimmed off and I'll be right back. Okay, now it's time to ladle into my jars. This is already starting to get thick. And I just want a 1/4 inch of headspace. It's right up there to the top just about. Alright, I'm going to be putting my lids and rings on. This jar right here, it was my last jar. It does have some foam on it. I'll make sure that doesn't go into competition if I choose to do so later. I used to enter into some county and state fairs. And I'm thinking I might try and do that here. I've not done it in this area. I've went around and I cleaned up my edges. Have to make sure your rim is really clean. I want that on fairly tight, but not screwed. Well, it helps if you put the lid on there, doesn't it? Don't want it screwed down so tight that it can't pull a vacuum. But I do want it snug. I'm going to put that on really tight and then I'm going to back it up just a little. Now these are some old jars, kind of an odd shape. I think they hold a little more than a cup. So typically on today's jars you would get 6 half pints. I didn't quite make that since these jars hold just a little bit more. And I have my foam and a little bit of excess jelly right here, which I'm going to save that and we'll eat that and have that right now with some cream cheese. I don't want to waste that. It's still good even though it has some foam in it. So I'm going to place these in my water bath canner, and I'll be right back. Okay, now I'm going to water bath can this, and I have hot water. Now I took some of my hot water out of here because I sterilized my jars. I took some of it out and replaced it with some cool water, and then I took my instant read thermometer, and my temperature was about 150 degrees for my water. So I'm hot packing. I want my hot jam into hot jars, and so I need to make sure my water is hot, but it needs to be below 180 degrees in order for this to heat properly and be safe. So now I'm just going to place this down here, turn the canner back up. I had it on a medium heat, so I'm going to turn that back up to high, place the lid on, and I'm going to bring this up to a boil. And as soon as I have a nice rolling boil, I'm going to process this for 10 minutes. I'll turn my timer on for 10 minutes. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, you can see my water is at a full rolling boil, and I have at least an inch of water over the tops of those jars. I have nearly 2 inches there. I've set my timer for 10 minutes. We're going to process and let this go. Alright, my timer just went off, so I've turned off my stove, and I'm going to take my lid off and let this stand for about 5 minutes. It needs to cool down just a little bit before I place that on a towel to let cool and let sit overnight. And the reason we let this sit for 5 minutes once we turn it off is just to let this cool down just a little bit, so that it's not such a shock to the glass once you remove it into much cooler air. Well, it's that time to pull the jammer. Okay. And I'm just placing this on the towel on the counter the towel over there where I jarred this up, which is right behind me here. And they're already starting to seal. Okay, here we are with the finished product of the jalapeno pepper jelly, and I did not add food coloring to this. I think it has a nice enough color on its own, and I don't need to add that. That's no reason to have that added color. So that's what the finished product is like. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope everybody has a fun day canning today.